Have you ever been watching a movie when all of the sudden something so visceral, so incredible, so impactful comes on screen? One single shot that makes you say, that's it, that's the movie. These are shots that aren't just well-crafted visuals, but are defining moments for the entire movie. Shots that can stand on their own and still represent exactly what this film is about. The shots I'm talking about are often, but not always, the most iconic visuals in the entire film. Normally heavily marketed and often publicized, these shots encapsulate what the director's vision for the whole film is in a single moment. One example that is close to us here on the channel comes 43 minutes into Adam Wingard's Godzilla vs. Kong, as the king of the monsters breaches the deck of a massive aircraft carrier and stands up with a terrifying roar, only to be socked right in the face by the eighth wonder of the world as Kong refuses to back down to Godzilla's threat. This moment right here represents exactly what Godzilla vs. Kong is about. It's a loud, bombastic piece of popcorn entertainment that uses spectacle as its compass and values what looks coolest over what makes the most logical sense. This shot is so iconic and unique that there can be no mistaking what movie it comes from. But for me, this is not a perfect shot. It's missing one essential ingredient to be a perfect shot. To take a look at what I consider to be a perfect shot, we can look no further than one of my absolute all-time favorite movies, 2017's Kong Skull Island. Directed by Jordan Vogt-Roberts with cinematographer Larry Fong, Skull Island combines spectacle with powerful thematic elements and gorgeous shot composition to deliver one of the most poignant shots in recent cinema history. 84 years after the original 24-foot gorilla known as King Kong was shot down off the Empire State Building by airplanes, and following a series of brutal defeats at the hands of the US Army, Jordan Vogt-Roberts took the character and modernized him before placing him in a rugged 1970s aesthetic where he was pitted up against a Vietnam-era US military. This leads to an incredible twist on the iconic Flight of the Valkyries sequence from Apocalypse Now and a real turning point in the King Kong franchise. While the military is showing off all their might, dropping high-powered explosives on the island in a reckless act of human arrogance, nature strikes back. And with the elimination of two choppers, the Sky Devils come face to face with Kong. This leads to what might be the single strongest visual in the entire Monsterverse, a 12-second long slow reveal of the silhouette of Kong on the horizon, standing in front of a blazing sunset. In the commentary for Skull Island, Vogt-Roberts reveals,
I love all these sunset shots. Like this is legitimately the imagery that was sort of in my mind. And then this shot right here, this is the shot. Like this is the shot that seared in my brain when the Apocalypse Now and 70s of it all came up, and just him silhouetted by that sun was one of the first pieces. It was the first piece of concept art ever made for this film, and we did so many takes of that shot to get it right. And I'm really proud of this whole sort of section as a reveal.
And you can tell their hard work paid off. Every single frame of this shot is filled with rich intention and meaning. From the initial reveal of the downed burning chopper in the forest to the glistening river where Kong stands, everything in this moment works together to create one perfect shot. Before I break down the shot's composition to reveal what makes this visual so impactful, I'll quickly address the wonderful sound design. Following the blustering soundtrack of the Paranoid sequence, we drop off almost all sound until all we're left with is the haunting echoes of the chopper blades ripping through the wind. This sound also harkens back to the iconic opening of Apocalypse Now, which similarly features beautiful forests covered in the orange haze of fire and sunsets while choppers fly around. A subtle pulsing increases as Kong is revealed that almost sounds like the motion trackers in Aliens and adds to the threatening nature of the king in this shot.
No, it ain't you.
Slowly, a cacophony of noise builds as the radio chatter from panicked soldiers fades in alongside an intense drum beat and an anxious set of strings. Finally, Kong's low, ferocious, tiger-like breaths of intimidation overpower the rest of the sound elements, showing Kong's dominance in this moment. As for the shot itself, the image embodies everything that Kong Skull Island is doing thematically. Building upon the previously established themes of the arrogance of man in the face of nature that started in 2014's Godzilla, this shot represents all that is the man versus nature genre completely. This shot also builds Kong up as more than just a movie monster or a gorilla. It makes him a god, something to fear, something to worship, something to respect. This image represents all the majesty, power, and myth that is sewed into the veins of Kong Skull Island and pulses through every single sequence. As for the design elements at play, this image combines lines and shapes. The helicopters, while featuring bulky rounded bodies, are very well defined and feature strong lines that give the viewer an anchor point in reality. Meanwhile, the setting is almost entirely shape dominated, creating a contrast between man and nature. The trees, water, hills, clouds, smoke, and sun are all soft shapes. Meanwhile, King Kong stands tall as the only prominent vertical figure in the frame and demands attention. His thin vertical appearance contrasts with the stretched environment around him, giving him more definition and stature to his silhouette, which elevates him above this moment. By having Kong be such a strong vertical presence, he almost takes on the appearance of a thick vertical line, which contributes to his power, as vertical lines have more potential energy than horizontal lines. There is also a lot of visual texture in this shot. While the blinding sun drowns out the majority of the image, creating a primarily soft visual aesthetic, a few of the helicopters, trees, the river, and Kong appear with enough detail to give depth and clarity to the image. This was accomplished by the wonderful digital artist at Industrial Light and Magic, who took the time to fully render and sculpt every element of this scene, from the background trees to Kong's expression, before color grading was applied with a silhouette to this shot. Had they built this shot as a silhouette first, there wouldn't be the depth and clarity to this image as we see here, as most things would be darkened blobs with defined shapes. Instead, a digital focal length and exposure were added after the elements were in place, which causes a natural soft focus and harsh contrast. This is complemented by the nearly monochromatic color scheme, which heavily favors the beautiful orange hue of the setting sun. None of the colors in the scene are distorted or exaggerated in ways that distract from the moment. It's all done in a way to create a sense of natural beauty. And while there are green trees and helicopters, they are caked in an orange glow that make them blend into the scene seamlessly. This wasn't always the case, as early teasers reveal the original color grading was much greener and had a starker contrast between the jungle and Kong. While this shot was still beautifully colored, it wouldn't have had as strong of an impression. The lack of color contrast in this scene builds a sense of harmony. Adding in the sound design and context, we realize that this is the calm before the storm. The focal point of this image is clearly King Kong. He stands at the point with the highest contrast as the white light behind him fights against the darkened shadows on his body, drawing the viewer's attention in. The area that draws the most attention is around Kong's shoulders, where his head is at. Kong is also centered in this shot, which adds to the feeling that the helicopters are being drawn towards him, as if they are all flying in to meet their fate face to face. Unlike some previous iterations, this Kong is a humanoid shape. This contributes both thematically and visually to the shot. It makes Kong more of a god, a step between man and nature, and it also helps draw the viewer's attention to a familiar figure that they can relate to. This helps provide both relatability and scale. Another thing that helps this image is that it's asymmetrically balanced. Kong cuts a line straight down the center of the image, and everything else builds outward from him. The sun is present on both shoulders. Behind him, a mountain range stretches to either side. In front of him, hills build upwards towards the helicopters that fly towards him on either side. The helicopters are also balanced with 3 apiece on either side of him. Every design element on one side of the screen has an equal or opposite element on the other side of the screen to preserve this sense of harmony. While the left side of the frame has more hills, the right side has darker sky tones, clouds, and more prominent background helicopters. And while the bottom right of the frame has a thicker forest, the bottom left has a glistening river to equal it out. Each frame in a movie has a rhythm, and this image has an intense rhythm. The frame would feel very claustrophobic if there were only 2 dimensions here, but the inclusion of depth with the z-axis, shown off with the soft focus in some areas, and the tilting up reveal spaces things out enough to let this shot breathe. Another thing that helps is that this shot has an unusually long duration for Kong Skull Island, a film that is edited at a rapid pace that is almost reminiscent of montage filmmaking. The final design elements that contribute to this shot is how the helicopters, all flying towards Kong, create the illusion of leading lines that guide the viewer's attention inward toward the god. The use of triangular shapes to create power sets up the coming conflict. The 3 helicopters on either side of Kong form subtle triangles, while Kong himself is positioned in a way to have a soft triangular silhouette. Triangles are the strongest shapes, and so they build the conflict very well. You have 2 powerful opposing forces coming head to head. Because this was the first shot Vogt-Roberts wanted in the film, lots of concept art exists of it, and all of this concept art fails to pack the punch that the final shot has, because while they may be fantastic pieces of art, they aren't utilizing nearly as many design techniques as masterfully as the final image. They show what would happen if the landscapes were too simplistic, but the rest of the frame was cluttered with clouds and helicopters. What would happen if the colors weren't as deliberate and rich? What would happen if Kong isn't standing in a strong triangular pose, giving him agency and weight? What happens if the king is too far in the distance to seem like a present threat? Or what happens if he's too close to the camera, causing him to lose his godlike presence and instead become an in-focus monster? All of these design elements would crumble under their own weight had they not had a powerful ideology to back them up. This single shot embodies the majesty and power of nature and the importance and strength of myth that fuels Kong Skull Island as a whole. Kong stands in as the embodiment of all of these things. He demands vertical presence in a horizontal world, giving him immediate power. As stated earlier, vertical lines possess much more power and potential energy than horizontal lines, making Kong the most energetic and threatening figure in this frame. Just from this alone, along with the massive scale, we know exactly how this coming conflict is going to go. Kong's contrast against the sun makes him stand out as something to be feared. His shape is recognizable but exaggerated, making him a great unknown. His majesty is felt through power and scale. The helicopters flying towards him are all heavily armored military units, but they fail to make the same impression as him. There's also a strong juxtaposition between the modern militia and the mythic creature, leading to the man versus nature theme. The modern world, with all its firepower and artillery, is still powerless in the face of nature, or, as Jordan Vogt-Roberts would put it, in the shadow of the Colossus. The mythical aspects of this image come through in the shadows. Kong is a force that is seen and felt but not understood, and the sense of scale the image gives this viewer creates the impression that this truly is a god being discovered for the very first time. Kong makes the helicopters flying towards him feel small and the men in them insignificant. He dwarfs everything around him and is a reminder to all that this world never belonged to us, and that the arrogance of man is thinking that nature is in their control, and not the other way around. What's up everybody, D-Man back. I hope you enjoyed that video. I know it was a bit more technical than I usually do, but I figured it'd be fun. I was gonna do a video talking about the cinematography of Kong Skull Island as a whole today, but I just didn't have the time, so I just wanted to focus on one shot. I'm feeling awfully nostalgic lately, so I hope you enjoyed my look back at Kong Skull Island 6 years later to celebrate the anniversary of the film. I really enjoyed rewatching the movie for this review. It's such a favorite of mine. And I hope you enjoyed this more deep dive type of video essay thing. I'm not gonna do something like this for every MonsterVerse anniversary, but I would like to do something small to celebrate every MonsterVerse anniversary this year. So this was the first one. I don't think I'm gonna do a video essay for all of them. I think I'm gonna do something different for each one, but I just want to do something. Do you guys have any shots that you consider to be perfect shots in films? King of the Monsters was one that was really hard for me to pick out what I thought was the perfect shot for that film. Is it Godzilla shooting his beam in the sky? Is it Ghidorah doing his alpha call in front of the cross on the volcano? Or is it the ending when Godzilla is truly the king of the monsters? If I had to pick thematically, I'd choose that one, but I mean, it's a matter of preference. Or do you have a different perfect shot from Kong Skull Island? I mean, a lot of people know that that actually isn't even my favorite shot in the movie. My favorite shot is the shot of Kong sitting on the mountain watching the northern lights, or the aurora above the island. But I just thought that the silhouetted sunset shot was the perfect shot for the movie. Also, sorry if I sounded weird during this video. I'm pretty sick right now, so it's kind of hard to record and stuff, but I hope you enjoyed nonetheless. I want to give a huge thank you to all my patrons on Patreon. I truly appreciate their support, and it does mean a lot to me and helps the channel keep going. So please, if you can, consider supporting the Patreon down below. That'll do it for this one, guys. So thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man, out.